and I think we must stand up for ourselves. Now, give some background. I'm going to show a video. It's about 10 minutes, and then we'll get into the very specifics of where I think Mr. Koskinen lied.
From the woman at the center of the IRS
scandal involving IRS targeting conservative groups.
Where's Lois Lerner? Targeting conservative groups.
Lois Lerner.
That's when Lois Lerner's. This was orchestrated. It was planned.
The possibility of criminal activity.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. Let the record indicate that the witness did answer in the affirmative.
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully exercise my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer that question.
The IRS and Lois Lerner, something we've only received over the years in bits and pieces. But what does it look like all pieced together? Let's rewind. In 2013, the IRS admitted to the selective intentional targeting of American taxpayers based on their political beliefs. This is Lois Lerner. She was the IRS employee with the most knowledge of the intentional targeting, but when called to testify, she refused, with the key witness unwilling to cooperate. To get to the truth, Congress had to obtain and review documents. What followed was a sequence of obfuscation, obstruction, and destruction of evidence by the IRS, which has left the American people with no real answers to why their First Amendment rights were violated. With rumors of targeting percolating, in June 2011, Ways and Means Chairman Dave Camp sends the first letter to the IRS related to the allegations of the IRS's mistreatment of conservative groups. 9 months later, in March 2012, Chairman Darrell Issa and Jim Jordan of the House Oversight Committee send a letter to the IRS requesting information. By May 2013, the IRS admits to targeting, and Chairman Issa and Jordan send yet another letter to the IRS requesting information. The President acknowledges wrongdoing and pledges cooperation.
It's inexcusable, and Americans are right to be angry about it. Our administration has to make sure that we are working hand in hand with Congress to get this thing fixed.
By August, the Oversight Committee issues its first subpoena, and the committee sends a letter to the Treasury Secretary reminding him of the obligation to preserve all emails. At this point, 3 congressional committees, the Inspector General, and the DOJ all have investigations underway. Fast forward 9 months. After he condemned the targeting, President Obama states in a February 2014 interview that there is not a smidgen of corruption.
Not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
But all these investigations are still open. Even the investigation he ordered was not complete. So how did the President arrive at this conclusion? What did he become aware of in those 9 months? Meanwhile, IRS Commissioner Koskinen appears before multiple congressional panels, promising to deliver all of Lois Lerner's emails.
Are you going to provide the documents for Lois Lerner
Yes,
that were subpoenaed?
yes. We're working very hard to get you the Lois Lerner emails.
Are you or are you not going to provide this committee all of Lois Lerner's emails?
We are already
Yes,
starting that process. Yes, we will do that.
Until he starts backtracking and obfuscating and parsing.
Process. We'll redact them. There's going to be thousands of pages, but it's not going to expedite the conclusion of this investigation.
And then, in June 2014, he tells Congress that Lerner's emails could not be recovered.
As the actual hard drive, after it was determined that it was dysfunctional and that with experts no emails could be retrieved, was recycled and destroyed in the normal process. This was.
So was it physically destroyed?
That's my understanding.
So what could have possibly happened for the commissioner to make such a statement? Remember that very first letter from Chairman Camp to the IRS in June 2011? Well, coincidentally, Lois Lerner's hard drive crashes just 8 days later. What are the odds? Her hard drive crashing within a week of an inquiry from Congress truly defies all odds. This hard drive will sit in the bin for nearly 8 months, until it is destroyed, within weeks of an IRS internal investigation commencing. Another coincidence. In April 2013, a month before admitting to the targeting, Lois Lerner reminds colleagues to be cautious about what we say in emails, and on that same day asks whether the internal instant messaging system is archived. When told no, Lerner responds, "Perfect." So back to May 2013. The IRS just admitted to targeting and the President just promised cooperation. Lois Lerner comes before Congress and takes the fifth. And on the exact same day, nearly 2 years after Congress started asking questions, finally issues a non-destruct order to all IRS personnel. So with an admission of targeting, subpoenas, and investigations underway, we return to the President's peculiar comments from February 2014.
Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Well, on the same day the President makes those comments, the IRS discovers a problem, a gap in Lois Lerner's emails. Thousands of emails are missing from around the critical period in the targeting in 2011. Remember, her hard drive crashed. Staff recognizes the need to collect backup tapes that might contain emails from the relevant time frame. Good thing for that non-destruct order and the subpoena from Congress ordering the preservation of documents. But on March 4, 2014, 422 backup tapes containing emails from the relevant time frame are destroyed. This is 30 days after realizing there's a gap and 8 months after the non-destruct order and the subpoena. How does something like this happen? The IG testifies that it's truly an unbelievable set of circumstances.
How in the world, with the preservation order and the subpoena, did they destroy 422 tapes?
It's an unbelievable set of circumstances that would allow that to happen.
And wasn't Commissioner Koskinen appearing before Congress at this same time, assuring members that the IRS would turn over all emails? Did the Commissioner intentionally mislead Congress? Testimony suggests that the IRS knew that Lois Lerner's emails had been destroyed at the time of the Commissioner's March testimony. Remember all the open investigations. Besides Congress and the DOJ, the IG was also investigating varying aspects of the targeting scandal. They started looking into Lois Lerner's emails in June 2014. Here's their story. In June 2014, the IG opens its investigations into the missing Lois Lerner emails. Commissioner Koskinen confirms that Lois Lerner's emails cannot be recovered and describes the great lengths the IRS has gone trying to find them.
We've spent, as I noted, at last count, $18 million responding. We've had over 250 employees at various times involved. We've had over 100 or 120,000 hours of effort devoted to it. And I said we've gone to great lengths. We've retraced the process for producing her email twice just to make sure that no email was missing. We understand the importance of this investigation. We've gone to great lengths, spent a significant amount of money trying to make sure that there is no email that is required that has not been produced.
They didn't find any. Meanwhile, the IG is looking for backup tapes. Just 15 days into their investigation, the IG drives 1.5 hours from D.C. to an IRS facility in West Virginia and asks for backup tapes used to back up Lois Lerner's email account. They are handed 744 tapes.
It's identified the 744 backup tapes that met this criterion, and TIGTA took possession of all of the identified 744 backup tapes.
Attendants at the facility said no one ever asked them for the tapes, but that they've been there all along.
IRS in testimony and letters stated that it left, and I quote, "no stone unturned," end quote, to recover the emails. Was that true?
And we were able to recover emails. So it would appear that that statement is
That
a
statement
relative
was
statement.
not true. July 2014, IRS officials testified that it, quote, confirmed the emails were unrecoverable, end quote. Given that recoverable data still existed on the tapes, was that statement true?
It would not appear to be true.
It would not appear to be true, and I quote, "no way," end quote, to recover them. Was that true?
That would not appear to be true.
That would not appear to be true. We have established here today multiple incidents where the IRS did not tell the truth.
Throughout the course of their investigation, which went into the summer of 2015, the IG recovers 1,000 unique emails that were never turned over by the IRS.
But what did they do with these emails?
To the best we can determine through the investigation, they just simply didn't look for those. So for the over 1,000 emails that we found on the backup tapes, we found them because we looked for them.
They had them. They were under subpoena. What a coincidence.
Remember those 422 tapes that were destroyed after the IRS knew they were missing emails? And after the non-destruct order was in place? And 8 months after the subpoena? If those had been properly preserved, an additional 24,000 emails may have been recovered. And maybe there would be answers. But the American people will never know, because the IRS didn't do its job of preserving the information the way it was obligated to do. The IG also concluded in its investigation that the IRS neglected to search sources beyond Lois Lerner's hard drive for emails.
How many potential sources for recovering Ms. Lerner's emails existed for the IRS?
We believe there were 6. The hard drive would have been a source, BlackBerry, backup tapes, server drives, the backup tapes for the server drives, and then finally the loaner laptops.
How many of these 6 did the IRS search?
We're not aware that they searched anyone in particular.
Look for backup tapes. They didn't look at her BlackBerry. They didn't look at the server, or backup server, or the loaner laptop. So what great lengths did they really go to?
On the advice of my counsel, I respectfully exercise my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer that question.
The bottom line, IRS didn't fulfill its legal obligation to respond to Congress. They didn't preserve information. They didn't try to find the information. They misled Congress for years. Their failings leave the American people in the dark about how their First Amendment rights were trampled upon. There must be accountability.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing us to show that video. I want to drill down a little bit further on Mr.